Richard Harris, Chief Executive, Port Shelter Investment Management, joins us now to talk a bit more about this huge development that transpired last evening. Richard, hi. Thank you for coming on board. Talk to us about whether or not were you expecting such an outcome for the Brexit vote in yesterday's Parliament session?
Well, there was a very small chance it might have passed had what Theresa May said over the weekend actually been as accurate as it was made out. Basically, what the Parliament was looking for was some kind of legally binding limitation on the transition period of Brexit. And of course, what happened was that her legal officials were unable to confirm that. So basically, it was back to square one. And although she did have quite a number of MPs come over to her side, it wasn't enough.
Richard, now the key question is today they're going to vote on a no-deal Brexit if they vote for it, or they will also vote on Thursday for an extension for the Brexit timeline. Do you see any of them going through, and do you see there's a possibility for a second referendum altogether?
Well, I mean, one of the things about this is that the opposition Labour Party have been opposing everything and just making it as difficult as possible for the government. That actually hasn't helped their electoral possibilities, but it has meant that Parliament has remained very, very divided. Now, actually, there might be a possibility that Labour will vote against a no deal, and if that happens, then there's probably a reasonable possibility that that will be passed. So Parliament then would have said, no, we don't like Mrs. May's deal, but also we don't like having no deal as well. Well, that leaves them in a position where they can't really get out of it except by saying, can we have an extension? So if it is agreed that Britain will have want some sort of deal, they will ask for an extension. Seems very unlikely that even with an extension that Mrs. May is going to get much more from Europe, certainly enough to satisfy Parliament. And in addition to that, the extension is going to be very limited, because if it goes on for too long, then Britain has to fight European elections and actually put new European members of Parliament into the European Parliament. So it's all a bit of a muddle. I think the most likely chance is that Parliament will vote to have a deal. That is, they will vote against a no deal, and they'll probably look for a small extension. But I don't really see us getting any further.
Right. Richard, just want to get in some comment on the kind of deal that Theresa May had presented in the Parliament yesterday, because according to the European Union, they've done everything they could. They've given them their best offer when it comes to the UK leaving the European Union. What were the changes proposed this time around that were different? But of course, it failed to impress most of the parliamentarians. But was it actually very unimpressive or that weak a deal that people were against it?
Well, I think the problem is Michel Barnier is an extremely keen European, and quite frankly, he's negotiated in quite bad faith. He hasn't really let Britain have anything. And anyway, they want to make it as painful as possible for Britain to leave, because otherwise there are some other people lining up, with desires to leave.
All right, then we leave it at that.
Wrongly, but the aim of the Europeans, okay, thanks very much.
All right, then I think we've lost Richard on that line. Anyways, that was Richard Harris from Port Shelter Investment Management giving his view on the Brexit deal and what this means and what will be the next step taken by the UK MPs.